All right, so let's take a look at this cross-site scripting. Here's the instructions, and there's the lab. All right, this is the simple case, of course, reflected cross-site scripting. So you have to call the alert function. It's in the search functionality, which is where you often see it. So let's see. When it gets the container spun up. Okay, there should be a search function here. So if you search for, say, AA, the next page says AA. And so the question is, did it literally repeat exactly what I put in? And it probably did. And so even if you put in a tag, like if I put in italic, II, then this does become italic, and that suggests I could put in active script. So that would be the typical one is this one, script, alert one, script. That's a JavaScript that will pop up a box containing one, and that's what you often do just to see if you can run a script. And as you can see, it does pop up a box. So the data that I sent to the server as a search string was echoed back to me and ran code. And so that means if I were to send someone an instant message with a link like this in it, when they clicked that link, this script would run on their machine, and I could do things like steal their cookies, cause their browser to buy my book if they are logged into Amazon, and so on. So that's cross-site scripting. That's the simplest case where you bounce your attack off the server. Another result of this, by the way, is this website will be blamed by antivirus products and Google for hosting malware. So if you let me bounce an attack off your server, you're going to get blamed for having malware. And you can scour your server and you won't find the malware because it's not living on your server, but it's bouncing off your server and you get blamed for it. It also means that if you're a trustworthy site like an educational institution or the government, then browsers and defense systems are inclined to trust that. And I will be able to sneak my script onto more machines by bouncing it off such a trustworthy site. So that's why I found a lot of some high schools years ago with this vulnerability, and I tried contacting them to tell them, and all I got was like people freaking out and getting mad at me and accusing me of stuff. I couldn't get through to anybody that could understand how this was harming them and they should fix it, which is generally the case. Telling people about vulnerabilities when they haven't paid for a pen test is called white hatting, and the whole security community pretty much tells you not to bother. I've done it hundreds of times, and I've observed a 2% success rate, so I tend to think that the professionals are right in what they told me, which is if you go on somebody's site, you find a vulnerability, just don't say anything and let them get hacked. That is the most professional thing to do. Until they get hacked, they're not ready to listen. Uh, the big pages do have like an abuse email, and the really big companies, like Google and Microsoft, actually have a security team that will pay attention, but they're also running bug bounty programs. So anyway, that's the first cross-site scripting. And here's another one where you store it into an HTML context. That was reflected cross-site scripting. This is going to be stored. And this is what happened to MySpace in the days, and it happened to Twitter many times. And I imagine it probably happened to Facebook too. Any place that takes content from a user and posts it so other users can see it are liable to have this problem. So in the comment functionality, okay, there's comments, if I view the post, and then I can put in a comment, so I can, presumably I can put in a script here. If it'll take a script in any of these fields, like maybe this one. That might be it. I'm just going to copy it and put it in a clipboard. I always do that when testing for injection. And I correctly format these things, assuming they'll notice. And this is going to be a website. Let's just use that. Okay. Let's see what this does. Thank you for your IP. And that I solved the lab. My comment has been submitted. And so what that means, of course, is anybody that views that page, if I go back to blog, yep, Now, anybody that views this page has that box pop up. So you could put a comment that steals your cookie and sends it to a server under your control, and then publish it. And then everybody that goes to that page will be sending their cookies up to that server. You can just harvest them later and then log into their accounts. Um, Another version of this that was pretty interesting was exposed, I think, LMA databases. It's a monitoring software used on web servers, and it can be misconfigured so that the error log is publicly available. So then all I'd have to do is send people a link which would have a mistake in it, like an apostrophe. And when they click, it'll create an error on the server, and I can see the error on the server. And some of those logs contain all the information, including authentication cookies. So that's the sort of thing that can happen. I wonder if it's probably worth mentioning DOM-based cross-site scripting. I used to find this very confusing when I first heard of this, but it all comes from the thing I said before, how modern websites are all written in JavaScript. And instead of writing the HTML, they build the page using JavaScript. So the JavaScript refers to elements on the page with the document object model. So this means it uses the document write function to write data onto the page with data from location search, which I can control using the URL. So I'm going to follow the instructions on this one. So we start with the search box. We're going to put in some random text and then look for it and see where it ends up. And this is where it's not quite as simple as being stored or reflected. It is used to generate the next page in a less obvious way. So let's see. Okay, so there's a search engine. So if I put in sleepy in here and then search, okay, there's sleepy there, but there's also sleepy somewhere else. And so I view the source here and I look for sleepy. Control F or Windows F on this thing. Yeah, sleepy. Okay, there's one occurrence of the word sleepy, and here it is, search results for sleepy. I think I've already in trouble, so let me go back to my instructions. Right-click and inspect the element and observe that it's inside an image source attribute. Oh, I guess I didn't have to perform the search. Is that what happened? Right-click, inspect. It's not in an image source. Uh-huh. All right, let's see if I can, maybe I didn't actually perform the search. Maybe you just put it here, right-click and inspect. That doesn't seem possible. All right, had this happen to me before. Inspect the element and observe that your string has been placed inside an image source attribute. Search, right-click, inspect. Now search here for sleepy. Now the filter doesn't work. There should be a search that works somewhere. Right-click search. Command F. Okay, there's a search. Sleepy. And there's two of them. Ah, okay, I finally found it. I notice I have real trouble with this inspect feature. It's hard to find things, and the different panes don't really all show the same data. I could probably stand to take a new web development course. I'm always sort of lost in these crazy browsers these days, but there it is. So it appears here, and it appears there inside an image source tag. So this would be a classic reflected cross-site scripting if it is not filtered, and maybe it is, but here it is, it appears inside an image source tag. So you can still execute code, but you're going to have to escape the quotes and the angle braces. Okay, so now that I've found it, here's what you do. That is the text that will do it, breaking out of there. So let's see that work. Let's go back and now search for that stuff, which is, where's the search? All right. Location search. All right, there it is. Okay, so I put in that stuff, and now when I search, it didn't pop up the box. And if I go down here and find it, I can search. Yeah, let's make this big again. Okay, Command F gives me a search box, and I can search for SVG, for example. And this is the one. On load equals alert one. So this image source tag was supposed to have a search term there, and I put in the end punctuation marks and then this tag, SVG at alert one, and then something will appear later that doesn't close it. But the point is, this is something will now run the script when the page loads. So that's why I wanted to show it. It's a little confusing, a little more complicated than the others, and there are a lot of different versions of it. But that's where you inject into things other than just literally bouncing back on the page. And there's a whole lot more of those, but that's enough of that demo. I think I'm going to stop this recording.